I am so excited to get this conversation going. So let's get it rocking. My name is Suzanne Hart. Welcome to Mindset Mastery. Our conversation tonight is how do you know you have done your best? Remember, look back when you had your parent ask you what happened to the other 5 marks, or you tried out for something, didn't make it, didn't make the team, and you walked away thinking, I wasn't good enough. We're going to talk about that exact conversation. But before we do, look at the beautiful sister sitting beside me. I know, I know. Okay, so let me introduce my friend. This woman is a coach. She is a leadership coach. I'm gonna tell you a little bit of a secret about her. She used to be a wrestler. Yeah, a wrestler. Little secret tip, and a very, very good one to boot. She is the mother of two and married to her beautiful husband, Trevor. I call him Love Man. And this is like one of those free spirited, easy flowing, but brilliant sisters. She is dangerous when you get her going. So please help me welcome my friend, Dale Stevenson. You might know her as Dale Allen. Hey, honey, how are you?
I am awesome, Suzanne. Thank you for that introduction.
I, I, I am so excited to sit down with you. So, just for everybody listening, we have these conversations. There's a few girlfriends I have conversations when we start, it just rolls. Time goes, it rolls. So, we're going to track the time tonight um, when it rolls. So, Dale, before we jump in, tell everyone a little bit about what you do.
Mm, I love that question, and I'm still trying to master that. So I've been called many, many things, many names, but in terms of the world of work, the area I love to play is in leadership. I love working with leaders in, either solopreneurs, in organizations, in government, but people who it's like they're at that point in their life where purpose becomes more important than the climb. And the only reason to climb the ladder is to have a greater impact. And I know where when I've met them, because they start saying, they ask different questions, Suzanne. Like they ask questions that are more about, how could we do this better? They look at their organizations and they see things that people can't see. They've got that sort of intuitive side that's mixed with a business side, and a business sense that allows the world to expand around the work that they're doing. And they're often really interested in, how do I have an impact, and how can I band together with other people who want to have an impact? And so they go to do that within their organizations. My absolute favorite.
I love it. I love it. The purpose becomes more important than the climb. Then, the climb becomes easier, doesn't it?
100%.
It's almost like you get pulled into orbit, if you will, or where you're going.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. So I want to jump into this conversation, and when I thought of having this conversation, I was thinking, who do I want to have it with? And of course, it was you. One is that we're both past athletes, we're both entrepreneurs, we're both a little bit overachievers, and we both tend to be a little bit, yeah, just a tad, and we both tend to be a little bit hard on ourselves. So, one of the conversations that I dropped in the group was, how do you know that your best is good enough? And what happens when you try something, you didn't get what you want? What happens? I'm going to tell you a few of the comments that we got, because we did a poll, and the number one thing that people do is they focus on the error, right? So they might have done 55 million things brilliantly, but they focus on the one thing they didn't do well. The second one that came in, they focus on perfection, not progress. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they weren't perfect, but they don't pay attention to all the progress that they've made. So that was a number two top one. They focus on perfection, not progress. Number three, we're going to talk about this. They didn't win, so they're just plain old disappointed, and therefore,
I know that one. I actually know all of them, Suzanne. Did I write those? Did I do that?
I think we both have, and then number four was they compare themselves to others. And we know how that game goes,
Mm.
right? So I wanted to ask you before we jumped in, what and what was, and I'm going to ask everybody else to do this. What was yours? So, like, which one for you is the big one?
Oh my goodness, Suzanne, which one is the big one? Well, actually, when you said number one, can you repeat it again?
Focus on the error.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. I think that would be my number one, because I know how much that expands, and it actually it envelopes all the other things that you just said. So that allows more comparisons, because then that will make the expansion of that error grow. Um, yeah, I mean, I'd say my number one would be that.
I think it's mine too, but I gotta say that I kind of dance. I have danced
Oh, all of them.
all of them,
Yes,
right? And
agreed.
it really depends on who's in the room and where I am,
Yeah.
right? So I will do the comparison if I, and let's just be candid. If I'm feeling insecure, I'm gonna do the comparison,
Mhm.
right? So I'm showing up in all my insecurities. So I'm gonna compare. If I am if I'm in a particular time where I'm on something and I'm at it, I'm gonna focus on that one thing I didn't get right.
Mhm.
I'm gonna focus on the error, right? If, and we're gonna talk about this one, if I have been stalled out for a while, then I focus on my lack of progress,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And when I was younger, I will say winning was everything. Not so much anymore, but I know when I was younger, if I didn't win, I lost.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So, what I think of where I want to start the conversation is that, oh, Cindy says she focuses on the error. Got it, girl. Got it.
Mhm.
So, I want to talk about, because this is really interesting. How do you know, or how do you define your best?
Mm. I love that you're asking this, because I've been thinking about something that's become super important for me, so that little pinpointed, that seed of an error doesn't expand and grow into this massive plant that is uncontrollable, right? And I'm realizing that the more conscious I am in when I'm setting a goal or setting out to do something, but the more conscious I am about the process, like how does it feel when I'm on the journey, it really is important to me. So I know everyone knows intellectually that whole, it's not about the destination, it's the journey. The flip for me though is Suzanne. It's when I set out that goal, and on the way, when I realize, like, am I having fun?
Mm-hmm.
Does it feel good? Does it feel good? Because to me, even though it's there's, like, every commitment invites a challenge, right? So even though I know that setting out to that for that goal, it creates a challenge, it invites a challenge, that I know that challenge has got to be enough to keep me going. Like, it's got to be stimulating,
Mm-hmm.
but it can't burn me out.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's so much to me about my consciousness toward the goal, because if not, then, like, I'm also realizing that on my way, we talk about course correction all the time. That's what mastery is, right? That's what you share with all of us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's what I share as well. And I think if I'm conscious along the way, then I know that the whole idea of this destination is all about those milestones in the journey, and kind of waking up at each point going, is this still right for me? Does it still feel good? What did I learn? What did I pick up along the way? And am I using that? And then when I do that, then in ways it's kind of, there is no error in a way, like, in quotation marks, there is no error. Like, it's more like I become aware of what I needed. I just set out for that destination. I didn't know that I would pick this up along the way. And until I start to set out, could I figure that out anyway? So to me, it's so much about my presence throughout, and it's usually, am I having fun?
Well, we are sisters, right? So if it's not fun and play, it's not worth doing. Not worth doing at all. But this is the interesting thing. I really like what you're saying here, because one of the distinctions I make for most people that I work with, is the distinction between winning and success, hitting the goal and success. And I think we collapse them too. So for me, how I wrap my brain around things is I go to work on making distinctions. So winning is your number one, we get it. hitting the goal is you hit your target, got that. But success is this interesting thing. And that's what you just talked about. So for successes for me success is I'm having fun and everybody who's doing the work with me is having fun. Because we all know what it's like to arrive at a goal and think, this was not fun and I don't want to ever do this again.
Mm.
So one is, are we having fun? Two is, am I growing, expanding, and becoming more? Right? So am I in the process of transformation? And am I going to emerge, of whether or not I hit the target, as a better version of Suzanne? That's my second one. My third one is, what are the lessons and new learns that I'm picking up along the way? Is the other one. And I think the one for me is, did I prepare? Because a lot of, for me, whether I've done my best is, did I come to this ready so that I'm all in? Because you and I know what it's like to be kind of in and not in, got my toe in, or got my toe in and my mind's over here, or my body's here, but my mind's in the other room.
Yep.
All those different things. So I think for me is, if I'm fully present, 100%, all in, prepared, and I've defined what those successful things look like, then best is, I know what my best is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
and I love what you're saying. It's that space in the journey, right?
Yeah, totally. You know, you just said the word space. The other thing for me, Suzanne, is it's like bringing the element of space in. So that means there's room for, when you talked about the growth and expansion, there's room for learning, there's room for those blessings, where it's like, it's actually a blessing because you couldn't have known that would be a blessing and a lesson in one. And I think I'm creating room for that, even in my soul and in my mind, that I'm creating room for that. So I think that's a really big thing for me to have that experience of, my best is good enough. And I'll know that because on those moments of course correcting where I pause. And I think what you're speaking about too, that I find important, is in order to make those corrections and to be able to ask yourself, am I having fun, to do those checks that you just spoke of, I have to pause throughout, right?
Yeah.
Like I've got to pause. And I think creating space for the pause to go, right, I know that I set out to run this marathon, right, in my business or whatever it is, or literally to run a marathon. And I know the steps to get there. But in between, each of like all those training sprints, if you will, like we do them with our business and we do them with our home life and we do them with our kids, for those of us who have kids, and we do them in education, like we do these sprints all the time for these marathons of life. And if we don't pause to go, I kind of need a drink of water here, and say, okay, well, how was that? Like, how was that kilometer?
Yeah.
And am I going to sprint the same way? Like, how's my footing right now? Does it feel good? Am I breathing? What are the blessings? What did I see? What did I feel? What did I pick up that I couldn't have picked up before?
And this is so good because, oftentimes we get so locked and loaded on the target, right? We're locked and loaded on where we're going, and we're locked and loaded on getting there quickly. And I know one of the things, and I know we've both been through this, we're on the journey, we're locked and loaded, we're going over there, and we want the journey to be this straight line, but the gifting is in the zigzag and the ups and downs and the highs and the lows. And I think what you're really talking about is when you and I are present, we are able to actually see the blessings in the journey and actually course correct, evaluate, go, ooh, that's nice. That was an opportunity. I didn't see that. Let's turn around and reevaluate this. We're able to see those things if we're not if we're focused on the journey and not just the target.
100%. 100%. And isn't that's like freedom, right? Like, is that not just fun to do things that way, right? Where we're not hard and fast about it.
Absolutely. I think that's where the fun and play live.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
It's being able to slow down. They talk about stop and smell the roses. I think the fun and play lives in the gaps of as you said, you know, those times where you stop and you evaluate and you go, yes, I need water, stop, evaluate, you know, I got to readjust my footing. It's in those places that I think we find our best. And I think oftentimes, and you know, oftentimes when we're only focused on the win, right, the end of it, it is disappointing because we didn't have any markers in the journey to give us any other points of satisfaction.
Yeah.
Oh, that is good.
That's so yummy. That's so yummy, Suzanne.
Good.
So, well, you know, and I love the word satisfaction because that's often what I think about is that's what we're looking for, is that just feeling that sense of, like, that felt sense of I am just so satisfied. It's almost like eating something that's so nourishing. Mm-hmm. And imagine if we when we're setting out to do something, that we just imagine that this is a time to be so fully fed. And so that you take these points to go, yeah, do I feel nourished? Do I feel nourished by that? You know, do I feel satisfied? Do I feel satiated? And then you start to look at them, you know, if not, what do I need? You know, and having that awareness to ask yourself, what do I need right now? You know?
Yeah. You know, it's funny because we've rolled into the next question that I promised everybody that we would answer. And what do you need to do to ensure your best is good enough? And I think we're really kind of beginning to talk about it. And you know, I think for me, a big part of it is really kind of laying out all these different markers, because I know what keeps me going is not you know, it's interesting because yes, I have a target, I have a vision, I know where I'm going, but what keeps me going truly is, one, all the little wins along the way, all the little successes along the way, all the beautiful experiences along the way, and all the evolution of self along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The evolution of who I am along the way. And that's kind of how I define it, because it's not for me, it is not enough to get to the target.
Agreed. Suzanne, I find that super juicy, because it makes me think of, like, how, you know, again, when I think about feeling nourished, when I pause along the way and I ask myself what I've received, like, not, but I mean, what has my soul received from doing this? You know, like when I've set out to do something, there was something that I set out to do for 100 days where I wanted to run 5K every day for 100 days outside, no matter what. So it didn't matter what the weather. So it was minus 40 and I went outside.
I remember that.
Right? But what was really different about that experience, Suzanne, and I know you know this because we've spoken about it, but I started to ask myself, what did I receive? Like, what did my soul receive from doing that? And then there were things that came up for me where I was like, oh, I'm loving this alone time. Mm-hmm. I love the fresh air. I love the mental clarity. And so when it became those things that I noticed that I was receiving along the journey, it was like, when I'd wake up the next day and it was minus 40, it was like, minus 40 can't erase the love for alone time. It can't erase, like, it cannot diminish, it cannot dismantle my desire for mental clarity. Like, I couldn't cancel on those things. It doesn't line up. And so that's where it just reminds me of when, you know, you're sharing about feeling satisfied. It's like, when you use those things of asking yourself, what are you receiving? When you look at those little seeds of nourishment and you ask yourself that question at a deep level, you go, right, I mean, how could I not keep going? And so then there's no failing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, there's always a win when you look at it that way. There's always a gifting in whatever's happening. I want to talk a little bit about comparison for a moment.
Suzanne, that's not nice.
And the reason why is, I think this is kind of so important what you're talking about. We all, you know, society is so built on comparison. You know, you open every magazine, we're conditioned to compare ourselves to something often not even real.
Right.
And I think when we get to this place where we're sitting this place of my best isn't good enough, we're really caught in the comparison trap. And one of the things I remember, one of my mentors, Nikki Kihoho, she said it's a lose when you compare. You will always lose because and she said because you'll always find a reason to come up short.
Mm-hmm.
And because the reason we're going to the comparison, if you will, is because we're not feeling full ourselves. Mm-hmm. So what do you do to not get caught in that comparison game?
That is such a brilliant question. I'll tell you what I do when I notice that I'm caught in it. Mm-hmm. There are two things that are really important to me. Sometimes one of the biggest things for me is to turn off my social media.
Oh, yeah.
It is a massive thing. It's
Everybody, put that in the comment section.
Right?
Turn it off.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. And I think it's a simple act, in particular, when we realize how just addictive and sexy it is to check out what's happening in the world in any way, right? Mm-hmm. And so even in news, we can be comparing, even if it's not about me in particular, but somehow we can grab from news and compare ourselves. So we're just expanding the pattern, our mindset for comparison, even if it's not something about our bodies or whatever, or the business or whatever it is. So we can keep that pattern of comparison growing in our mind. And so I find actually turning off, but this turning off and going in. Mm-hmm. Right. And so this is where one of the things that I find super powerful is the act of journaling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And Suzanne, in particular, what I tend to do is I start to write about what I so value about and what I'm offering and what I will offer. And it switches for me then this comparison, because it's like, what am I gifting? And I start, when I write about it, then I actually get into conversation with, yours truly, right? With myself. And that allows me to shut off all of those the noise and the excess that's only coming from me anyway, because it's me bringing it in anyway when I'm comparing myself to others. But I find that when I turn off and go in, I find that is just so spectacular for me. And going in for me means journaling. But what I'm journaling about is often about my gifts and what I'm offering, and then different ways that I can offer that to the world. It's just been a key piece for me.
For mine is very similar. So I love what you're saying. So I journal every morning, and it's so I read and then I journal and I kind of pray through journaling. That's just my thing. And what's really interesting is when I find myself stepping away from journaling because I'm caught in busy, right? And I really want to say I'm caught in busy. Mm-hmm. It is that I find myself, and the reason I'm caught in busy is I'm in comparison. Mm-hmm. Not fast enough, not good enough. Someone else has got their program out there, all that stuff. So one of the things for me, like you, is I stop and I journal, and for me it's, what am I grateful for? And where am I unique? Mm-hmm. And I just kind of play in that beautiful area. And I think the piece I constantly remind myself is that if I get compared, if I get caught up in the comparison, I am not caught up in my own brilliance.
Yeah.
And I want you guys to
Can you say that? Just say that again.
If I'm not if I'm caught up in the comparison, I'm not caught up in my own brilliance. Mm-hmm. Because my own brilliance is the thing that you can't compare. It's my uniqueness. Mm-hmm. And I think for myself is really getting to that place where I'm embracing my uniqueness, the uniqueness of my hair, the uniqueness of my look, the uniqueness of my own swagger, if you will. The uniqueness of how I look at information, how I deliver information, how I receive stuff. And I remind myself that there's somebody out there that's blessed because I am just me.
Right. Totally.
Isn't it?
Totally, totally, totally. I love it. I love that, Suzanne.
Yeah, yeah. And if you and I get caught up in the care comparison game, what that brings is this thing of shifting, changing, altering, and getting further away from our divine self, our true self. And then people can't find us because we're in the sea of sameness. We're in the sea of the, I call it the sea of the Joneses. Right?
Mm.
I'm just another white picket fence, 2 point some children, 2 cars in the neighborhood. No one can distinguish me. And so for me, is my best is my uniqueness.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
That is good.
That is so good. I was struck by the sea of sameness. That's super fascinating. Suzanne, when you said brilliance, I think one of the things, was what popped for me. Can I share what
Yeah,
popped?
absolutely.
Okay, so what I pictured was the word brilliance as light, and just imagining this sort of shining, right? And that in the sea of sameness, that light can't shine. And I think that's the gift that we offer, right? And that when we're comparing, then we don't trust it, and it is so dim that it can't be seen.
Yeah.
And so that there's that literal thinking of brilliance as gifts and what I offer, but actually this light as well is part of that, and I think if we think of that of when I'm not comparing, then I'm shining, and you just imagine what that attracts.
Yeah.
And how that lights the way for yourself and for other people. Like, how yummy is that, hey?
So you just gave me another
Talk to me.
another unexpected. So also consider that I want to get everywhere quick. I like everything yesterday. That's why I don't sew anything, because that takes too long. I want it now. That's just my personality, right? I don't sew, I don't garden. Just bring me the flowers. I just want it now, right? That's my personality. But this is the interesting thing, is that when I think my best is arriving before somebody, or arriving or getting the thing. And what I'm beginning to realize is that sometimes the cultivation of the delay is because my best is being sharpened, sharpened.
Woo! Uh-huh.
And so how many times, and so for you, I know this about you, and I know this about me, is that your gifting, your brilliance, what you do now came out of the delay, and came out of the struggle, and came out of your most vulnerable time when you were like, this is not happening on time. And if you were to bail, that it wouldn't have been polished and sharpened. It's like the diamond that was like in the heat of that moment, and you were like, I don't like this delay. I don't like this delay. Mm-hmm. The delay is creating the best.
Yes, 100%. There's a book that I've been reading that I quite love, and one of the things I love about when he talks about transition is that is that place where we usually don't have the patience for, and so we usually stop right before the breadth and the most expansive part of the brilliance is about to shine. When you talk, I was just picturing the diamond, and that it still is a little bit dull, and we're like, oh no, this is taking too long. Like they said it would take, X amount of time, and it's not taking that time. It's supposed to be now. And then we usually stop before we notice a difference. Well, I have a dear friend who I quote all the time, who says, do something long enough until you notice a difference. Have you heard that quote before?
I have. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's because it's you who I'm quoting. You don't know that, but I say all the time. So I knew you wouldn't know that. So that's so funny. I knew you wouldn't know that. I quote you all the time, Suzanne, because when people ask me, well, how long is it going to take? Like, how many coaching sessions should I have? And I'm like, I just kind of go till eternity, and then you'll figure out when you should stop. But or when we're coaching for health, and someone says, well, how long should I work out for? Like, how many months? And I'm like, do it long enough until you notice a difference. So I always say, hashtag Suzanne Hurt. But it's a true story. I often say that because I think we stop right before. And I think, when I was listening to you, it reminds me that that moment when you know that you must keep going is when there's confusion and frustration, and it's at its peak. It's that we usually will go, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
But actually, your best is, yeah. I mean, it's happening. Like your best. I mean, your best was unfolding the whole time, but your appreciation of your best is just about to pop. It was always happening, but your appreciation of it is just about to pop. But you might pull out before you get to see it. You know that way.
So I'm going to go. Of course, you just got something else that came to me. So if you were to if you were to redefine this whole conversation when people are saying, oh, my best wasn't good enough. And I hear it so often. I didn't get the job. My best wasn't good enough. This didn't work out. My best wasn't good enough. Someone didn't do, my best wasn't good enough. If we were to tonight redefine it, how would you define our best?
Okay, this is where I'm going to actually pull you into this, but I'll more tell you about how I would coach and be with someone when they're setting out to do something that would allow them to start practicing a different way of going after their best. Okay, and then maybe you can help me tie it in a bow. Yeah, after it's going to be great. So this is what the package would look like for me that we're about to tie in a bow. It would be that I would yeah, I noticed that too. I would more coach to, you've set out the target. We already know how to do that. Like everyone knows how to do that. I think what's different, you talked about mastery and about mindset, is what I would continue to remind in the practice we would set up is more about how do you celebrate each aspect of the journey. In particular, when you feel the most frustrated, because it's going to come, right? Every commitment invites a challenge. So every time during your commitment, you notice a challenge, how do you celebrate? You talked about gratitude. Notice what you are grateful for in those moments. And actually don't even just say them, feel them. Like you've got to feel that gratitude. And I find when that becomes your practice where you're like, okay, I know that every commitment invites a challenge. So each time I have that felt sense of challenge, I'm going to feel into gratitude, not just say them, but I'm going to feel it. And I say to people, don't stop until like you've said it. You might have said it, oh, I'm grateful for X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. But I want you to not stop until you feel it. Okay? So you keep going, long enough until you feel it. And then you keep going. And then you go, okay, well, now what's my next step? So that's what's shifted for me. And so this is where I know you'll come up with a like beautiful, way to tie it in a bow. But to me, the practice must change so that you start to see that, oh, all of those are my best. Like all of those milestones were my best. I call them love stones, actually, because it's like, right, it's like moments to just love each of those milestones. I call them love stones, right?
And so my bow would be this, because this is what came to me as we were talking, and I say this all the time. So I'm going to say it differently. Best is fleeting. Okay, so I want everybody to get this. Best is fleeting, because my best right now is done. It's like this, right? And when I overcome something and it's fleeting, and it's almost like we're looking for this thing that's constant. Like I show up, I win, it was my best. Consider that your best is fleeting. So the best Suzanne today, what am I going to do to find the next version of her tomorrow? And the best of her tomorrow, what am I going to do to find the version of her the next day? So for me, as I'm listening to you and how I kind of work is when I show up and I got to accept it is what it is. Whatever happens in that moment happens. And in that moment, my thing is, okay, yay, did it, celebrate, just like you said, feel into it. And I always celebrate showing up and playing, right? Because so many people don't show up and play.
Right.
I'm showing up and playing. But this is the thing for me. What did I do brilliantly, right? Where can I learn? And where do I go to find the next best?
Yeah.
Because that for me is innovation and transformation constantly at work. And it's just like what you said, celebrate the place of like what you did, celebrate the frustration and listen to the language, right? Celebrate the frustration, because the frustration, the roadblock, the thing is the place where the rub of brilliance is. So
100.
celebrate the frustration. It's a love stone. And go, what do I do to get to my next best? Then you get to celebrate the frustration. What do I do to get the next best? Because this is the thing. If we aren't frustrated, if there isn't a rub, we're not playing a big enough game.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Totally. That is yummy.
I'm gonna just check in and see what Cindy's got bestest fleeting. Colette's like the practice must change. She took that one from you, Dale. Every commitment invites a challenge. I love this. Do it long enough till you see a difference. I don't know who said that.
You didn't know I was quoting it? You're wondering why your ears were kind of burning so many times throughout the day? That's me.
Blessings and lessons. I love it. So everyone, so this is the stuff that both Dale and I do. We and it's funny because we get together and we have the same conversations from different places. It's awesome all the time. And so what I want you to do is to put mastermind in the comment section. When you do that, you will get an opportunity to, one, register for the mini course. And if this conversation is rocking your world and you're like, oh, I need more of this, you have an opportunity to create a mindset mastery mentoring moment with Suzanne. And I will sit down with you for a few minutes and we can continue this conversation, but totally focused on you. So mastermind in the comments section. And after, just go and complete your registration. So Dale, the thing that's coming to me right now is, what happens for people when, what are you going to say, or what do we do when we truly feel like we've left it all on the mat? Mm-hmm. And we've been leaving, that time when you've been leaving it on the mat, leaving it on the mat, and you feel like you're standing still. Mm-hmm. How do you work your mind around that?
Yeah, that's really great. It's so funny. I'm doing a yoga certification right now, and I connected with someone today, and I was sharing with her that there are about two things that happens for me when I've left it all on the mat, and I'm done. But there's like in my mind I want to move, and in my body I'm sluggish in whatever way that looks like, right? So there are two things. If I know I'm digging and I can't, for whatever reason, dig deep enough to find the motivation, the incentive, the drive, the inspiration from within, then I reach out to someone. Okay. I do, and I think it's an important thing that we remember that we're not here alone. The same way we want to be there for other people, and that we must actually also reach out with that gift of offering someone to be able to support us, right? Because that is a gift to be able to do that. So I think it's a real gift also that we offer things like this where we can have chats and we can invite people to listen for those seeds that, it's just they're watering the seeds in themselves. So that's something that I personally do. When it's to dig deep and to go and get it from myself, to that deep inspiration where I'm not dependent on anyone except for myself. I go into a place of feeling. Like I actually go in and so what going in looks like is actually sitting quietly, like really quietly, and not trying to think about anything, not reading something to be inspired to journal, because that's a thing that I often do, is read something where I'm trying to express and get things out of my head so that it'll be quiet. It's a shift from that to actually creating full quiet and just focusing on, for me, it's breathing. So that whole inspiration is literally inspiring, breathing life into a place of quiet. And so it's about creating space in my own self so that I can feel. And when I can feel, well, that means I'm back connected into me. And when I'm back connected into me, then I can start asking myself those questions to say, are you ready? Are you ready to get up off the mat? Are you ready to do just one thing, right? Just one thing.
This is so important, because I think I think, when I'm in the conversation of my best is not good enough, I'm out there. I love what you're saying. I'm
Mm-hmm.
out there, right? I'm out in the world, and I'm in the comparison. And it may not be with another person, it may be with an outcome. I didn't get it. It's still a comparison. As soon as we go not enough, we're in the comparison. So, and I love what you're saying, because one of the things to dissipate that comparison is to actually sit in quiet and feel. So one of the key components of mastery is emotional mastery. And most people think that when I say emotional mastery, they think, oh, well, I just get past it. I do. I love the phrase when people say, just get over it. Just get over it.
Yes, yes.
Ah,
Uh-huh.
right? Because it's the exact opposite. And I think what you're saying is that opportunity to sit and be present to the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Really, what I'm not good, that my best wasn't good enough, is really the disappointment. It is the hurt. It is the whatever feeling. And when you're able to give your body the opportunity to feel, it will emote, right? It will emote. And for Suzanne, everybody knows emotions crying. I cry like a baby, right? Once I have given my body that opportunity to release, power comes back to me.
100%.
Clarity comes back to me. And it's almost like I've been re-energized. And now I can say, okay, I know what. And now I can look from a place of what can I learn? But as long as my emotions are in the way, and as soon as you get into that conversation of, I'm not good enough, this wasn't good enough, that, what you really want to ask yourself is, what am I feeling and what's going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Allow yourself to experience the hurt, the disappointment, the frustration. Allow it to happen so you can clear it, versus stuff it, eat it, drink it, drug it, all the things that we are conditioned to do just so you can keep moving.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that you're really speaking to, and this is so good, Dale, is the ability to, when you sit in that place, you also tune into your own opportunities, right? And what I mean by that is we're all brilliant. We are. We're all brilliant. We're all gifted. We're all so special. And when we sit and we allow the emotions to wash and dissipate, there's this place where you get to, it's almost like you start downloading, because the emotions were in the way, and that thing that you didn't name and that thing that you didn't understand was in the way. And as soon as that gets out of the way, it's almost like,
yeah,
you start downloading answers, because now you're open. It's out of the way. Two things can't occupy the same space. So you can't be full with all these negative, frustrated emotions and expect to download brilliance or even tap into it.
Right. Yeah. And it's exactly, and it reminds me the other day when I was practicing yoga, it was like, how do I expand the element of space? And so what I'm receiving from what you're saying is that, as well as this idea of, if I'm comparing, I know that I'm filling up my mind, I'm filling up my energy with a lot of junk. A lot of junk. And it's like, and it's almost like it's getting so thick, and there's just so much to go through and to move through, and to create time to sit quietly in the essence of clarity and quietude and nothingness, where nothingness is everything,
Yeah.
And so that, with the whole sole purpose to create space. And so we need to start valuing that. We need to start valuing creating time for quietness. And so that we're, when people are like, but it's uncomfortable, sitting and like this meditating thing, like it's just uncomfortable. Again, if it depends on what we're after. And so if we understand that concept of creating space, and that our mental chatter through comparison, our negative self-talk, whatever it is, that we fill up on that. And then it's like, how do I clear it? And if I don't have a way to clear it, and that's what my work is so much about, is how do I clear that stuff so I make space for what you said, the light, the brilliance. And there's
Mm-hmm.
a must do. So that practicing something new becomes important, you know?
It's so key, because once you're able to figure it out, you move from reaction, because that's,
Uh-huh.
and so many of us live most of our life reacting to
Yes.
emotions, reacting to the
Yeah,
world. And,
absolutely.
and when you get into that stillness and you clear things out, it's like you move from reaction and you actually move into responsiveness. And responsiveness is your ability to respond to the world around you. And there's a difference between reacting to the world around you and just being in this place where you're able to respond powerfully. That's choice.
Yes.
What will I do with what I perceive?
Yeah.
Right? And not what I'm emotionally perceiving, but what I actually perceive when I clear out the stuff.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And possibility becomes available, right? Where it's like when there's no space, how could possibility find itself? So it's such a gift we can give ourselves, right? So again, when we're thinking about our best, to me, my best looks like, how do I create possibility in a moment? Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's like if I go for that, then it's not this best as in this world of time and space where it is about comparison and it is about the best job and the best mark and the best pay and the best Facebook post and the most likes. And if I move out of that and I go, maybe I'm just the pattern I'm creating is this pattern of possibility, and I'm like, ooh, that's just much juicier. It seems
So
more peaceful.
I love it. So this is this. I'm gonna wrap this.
Best.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm so this is so what I'm getting from what you're saying is that it's about being your best self. It's not about achieving anything out there. It's when you and I show up at our best as our best self, the world gets our best.
Mm-hmm.
And that is irregardless of outcome, irregardless of win or lose, irregardless of all those things, is when I'm committed to showing up as my best self and evolving in my next best self. I can't help but give the world my best. And what's really cool about that, Dale, you know it and I know it, is when I show up committed to being my best self, best happens, right? Magic happens. It's like things begin to align because I am showing up as my best me. And we think that it's the results that define our best. No, it's showing up as your best that creates the result.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh, that's if I could. Yeah. Suzanne, can I share one thing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So the one thing I would say, and I want to say to everyone who's listening, is what can happen if we're, depending on the level of consciousness that we're at. Like when I say that, I don't mean in a hierarchy, like, that one is more conscious than the other. I just mean just from where we're thinking, where we're living from at the moment. What you and I are sharing, Suzanne, can still have us in this place of striving. And striving invites comparison, which invites challenge. Yeah. And it invites a lot of pain. And so one of the things with what we're speaking of in this definition of best is that what happened was your best.
Mm-hmm.
We're just inviting people to bring a consciousness to it more often, to what we're doing, so that we're aware of what that best thing looks like, our best self looks like at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference between what most of us know as the striving best, where this is more like, this is our conscious best. So it's more like, how many more times could I be aware of the choices that I'm making?
Mm-hmm.
And so that when things don't go as planned, then I can pull out into possibility. And why I wanted to share that is because what can be a bit of a dangerous place to play is when we just strive and strive and strive and strive and strive, that we're never satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to remind people, because I know we know that, right? And I just want to share, because sometimes we can miss that, that the definition of best that we're talking about is that's why, when we open, we were talking about that you're feeling into it, that you talked about gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
When you operate at that level, this whole definition of best will throw out that old definition of striving, right?
Absolutely. one of the words that, you know, one of my programs is called Fit, Fab, and Fulfilled. And the piece of fulfillment is what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about your best self. Is that it's that place where you go to, or that thing that you experience where you are so showing up pleased with who you are.
Yeah.
Right? Pleased with who you are being in the world. And it's not a place of comparison, it's a place of self-acceptance.
That's the word. Self-acceptance is so the word.
It's a place of
Right?
self-acceptance, it's a place of self-love, it's a place of self-knowing. And it's doing the pieces so that you bring your unique best self, your fulfilled self to every place you go. And it's hard to say I didn't, like when you show up as that person, it's hard to say, like I know when I show up as that person, I'm gonna crush it.
Oh, promise you.
And it doesn't matter what's going on with everybody else. I'm going to bring that to the place. And I think sometimes it shows up as just what one person needed, or just what this person needed to hear, or a gifting for a group over here. And it may have nothing to do with what you expected. Right? But that was your best self, because we're so caught on this is what it's supposed to look like when we show up. Whereas you could be the blessing and the domino and the snowball for something over here, although you came for this.
Mm-hmm.
I came for A, but B was what needed to happen.
What needed to happen? Yeah. Beautiful.
I miss speaking.
Oh my gosh, we gotta do this more often.
I'm gonna bring you back. We're just like, okay, Dale's back again. We're gonna have another conversation.
Must do.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Dale, tell everyone where they can find you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you want to come and hang with me and explore some amazing conversations for movement in your life, you can reach me at, our website is www.theleadershipgroup.ca. And you can also email me at dale@theleadershipgroup.ca. I would love to hear from you.
Thank you so very much. We have been hanging out with Dale Stevenson. And my sister from another mister. We just jam. That's what we do. For those of you who joined us tonight, I know that we've dropped the link for the mini course in the comment section. You can get it through Mastermind. You can get it through the invitation. Definitely take advantage of just this conversation and jump into this beginning of self-awareness, this beginning of just knowing. My commitment is that people fall madly in love with themselves. That's just my thing.
Ooh,
because when we fall madly in love with ourselves, magic happens. You bring a beautiful you to the world. Dale, I don't even know what to say with you. This is good. This was good. I played tonight. This was my playground.
Oh my gosh, that was so.
Everybody got to hang out, but this was my playground, like my jam tonight.
Totally.
Everyone, my name is Suzanne Hart. This was Mindset Mastery. I was hanging out with my girl Dale Stevenson. We will be back here next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Look for the invitation. Look for the promotion. You don't want to miss the next conversation. Until then, be blessed, and I will see you back here next week. Take care.